know many of you are entertaining that thought, so I thought I would share my approach to that, and some of you may have different ideas on how to do it. Welcome, everybody. Hi, Alicia and Miss Lombard and Chris Yost from the San Francisco Bay Area. Oh, I hope you're having a nice day out there. That's awesome. And so please, sign in. Let us know where you are watching from. And Joanne Bull, you're in Cape Coral. Oh, that's a beautiful spot, right? And Isabel in France, thanks for joining us all the way across the pond, right? So today we're going to talk about the steps that you'll have to take to transform these individual, wall hangings, these tiny little wall hangings, into a pieced quilt. We'll talk about the steps that you need to change during the embroidery process, how to cut the sashing, and then how to piece it together. And let's see. Oh, here we have Sue Brown has joined us. Hi, Sue. Oh, no. They're coming fast and I click on the wrong one. But Sue, she's our friend from OML Embroidery up in Canada. She's having a beautiful day up there. That's great to hear. Oh, and Sharon from South Africa. No, let's see. Sorry, I can't keep up with it. Let's see. Somebody here is from South Africa. Yes, Sonette. Welcome, Sonette. Thank you for joining us. It's nice to have you here today. And hey, Kathy Colvin, nice to see you. Really lovely to have all you folks joining us today. So once we talk about, I'm going to show you some examples of how to cut the sashing, the different widths and so forth. And then we're going to talk about needles because, I know that many of us struggle with puckers and so forth. And needles is one solution to those ongoing problems. In addition to that, we have some specials, we always have specials at the end. We're going to share that. So, here I have a neighbor joining me from the Colony, Texas. I live in North Texas also. Hi, Barbara George. Thanks for joining us. I'm on just, down the road, 121, a little bit from you. And hi, Misha. Thanks for joining us, Misha, again today. So, but I know you want to see what dime doors of yours, right? The August doors, the lake house, maybe that some of you have done. So let's switch over and take a look at your creations because they have really been terrific. So if you're new and you don't know what we're talking about, this is an ongoing whole year full of free embroidery designs that I provide to you. They're, free for you to download. And January, February, March, and April. And then we have May, June, and July. And then we had the August door. So that was the lake house. So I'm going to start with your August door, which one that I thought was just adorable by Candy Bray is take a look at what she's added. She's added a chimney with some smoke coming out of it. What I would call a stained glass window in the eaves on the lake house, and clouds and a bird and a pet in the front yard. I love that. That's just beautiful. And Sandy Arcuri, she selected a beautiful sunset fabric. Isn't that a gorgeous sunset? Just beautiful. And she changed the colors of her chairs. She doesn't have two matching chairs. She changed them. So I love that. Oh, it's great to see all these people chiming in. Let's see. We'll catch up with our comments in a little while. Alicia Gentry, you did a beautiful job. Now, she spread those doors out a little bit. Maybe she resized. I'm not so sure. I think she probably brought the fence post, the fence forward a little bit and added a table with a book and a coffee cup. And I hope you can see that there's a fishing pole with a fish on it, stashed against the house. That is really charming. And she added shrubbery in the foreground also. It's really great. Really, really great. So, and then Susan Lady, oh my, she told in her comments, she did over 40,000 stitches, which is a lot of stitches. She changed the chair. She used her own chair. She added a cat by the front door. She has a jar of fireflies, lightning bugs sitting there on the banister. She has fish hanging on the wall. She also added a chimney and those those little bugs. I'm thinking they're lightning bugs, but they could maybe be small birds, but absolutely adorable. And again, she added floral decoration in the foreground also. I think she did a really beautiful job on that. And then Sandra Conley, she added a welcome mat and a couple daiquiris to the front porch there. And she's got a bonfire going in the foreground. How fun, really fun. Who's next? Nancy Engleton. I just love her bright blues. Aren't they gorgeous? They're just really lovely. Lots of bright color there. And she selected a bright blue for her lake, that tiny little glimpse of the lake on the right-hand side. But, you know, in my mind, behind that lake house is the whole lake. So that's would be a fun place to visit. And then Renaud Paulson, she added lace to her window, which I thought was a very creative idea. We saw some of that in the March door, and I was glad to see that she did that again, you know, did that same technique. And her fabric selection for the porch is great, just beautiful. I love that. It really looks like stonework with those grout lines. Very, very nice. And then Lois Leonard, she selected a floral fabric for the ground, kind of like ground cover. I love that. Looks really nice, right? And I like the fabric that she chose in her window, and her doors coordinate with the eaves. Really very, very nice. Next up is Crystal Campbell. She put her family name right there on the lake house, and she's added some fireflies in the sky. She also added a welcome mat, and I like her kind of swirly fabric that she chose for the foreground, or the porch, shall we say. And then Krista Lovely MacArthur, I love that. These fabrics are really fun. So take a look at the door. She used, I imagine that might be a floral print, and she fussy cut it so it looks like dimension on that door. Very attractive. And then, nice small prints for both the eaves and the window and the foreground of the porch. Looks really lovely. And again, she's added a cardinal up on her roof. Lots of people love cardinals. I think they are. I most certainly enjoy seeing them in my backyard for sure. And then, of course, we have to include Gayla George, because she kind of went a traditional fashion, but that looks just like a lake house, doesn't it? I mean, she really nailed it, I think. And then Dwani Howard added fireflies in her sky. And again, look at the fabric that she chose for the ground. It really looks like stonework. The scale is just right. Looks really great. Very well done. And then Sue Brown. Sue Brown is the one who leads OML's whole happenings over on social media, and she includes every post Saturday. After I reveal the door on Thursday, she does a sew along. So this was her rendition, and I believe she does it in a 5x7. So for those of you who have only a 5x7 hoop, you're not limited. It's not that you can't do these doors, because we provide a free software program on our website that you are able to use and download, and then resize your doors in it. So, don't shy away because you have a 5x7 hoop. So I think it's time to take a look at how we would lay this out, right? So one option is in a 3 blocks across the width by 4 all the way down. Now I'm suggesting a 1/2-inch sashing between the blocks. Now you're just seeing my finished blocks up on a design wall, so they are not truly pieced together. But I just thought I would, kind of run through the steps, and I'm going to do some digital quilting. Love that. You don't actually sew, but anyway, to give you just some ideas on sashing. So if you did not add a border to this quilt, it would finish at 20 by 43, and with the borders, it would be at 24 by 47. So here's what it would look like if you had blue sashing And, you're going to have to find a fabric that is kind of common amongst most of the doors. And blue may very well be a good choice because, there's sky in several of the doors, and blue is practically a neutral. And really, what we're doing is kind of architectural buildings, right? So you're going to have a lot of tans and browns and grays. It's just the nature of when you are embroidering buildings. So that's what it looks like. Okay. Now, we could opt to do a 4x3 vertical layout. So now we have 4 across and 3 down. This finished size would be 27x32 without borders. And now when I say with borders, I'm adding a 2-inch border on all 4 sides. You have to be careful of the proportion of your borders and your sashing, because these are embroidered blocks with lots of small details. So if we add, let's say, a 6-inch border, that's all you're really going to see when you look at that quilt. So keep your scale in line with the project that you're working on. So what would that look like in blue or in red, right? You have lots of options. Quilting digitally is lots of fun. And actually, I didn't use a quilt program for this. I just used PowerPoint because this is what I have to present it to you in. So now we have a horizontal layout. And I don't know which one I like the best. I'm not really sure. But this was 6 across by 2 down. And again, 1/2-inch sashing. So without borders, 41x21 with 45x25. Not really sure which one I like, but I thought you'd like to see it in black sashing. Lots of us love to use black for sashing because it really does let our embroidery, come forward, our applique fabrics be the featured hero of the whole project. So that's a consideration for sure. Maybe a dark gray would also be appropriate. Sometimes black is too harsh, so you could consider a dark gray. And here is that same layout in the blue. Now, remember, this is all digital, so my sashing lines are not equal across the door. So, but this just gives you a good idea. So let's see, Judy Warren, she says, thanks for giving you the dimensions. It's helpful to know, well, how is this going to finish up, right? So that's why I thought, well, it's easy for me to add that. So I thought I would. Of course, this is with 1/4-inch seam allowance, so keep that in mind. And Joreen Lightfoot, you need to find a single frame to hang one of my doors. I know it stands on its own. Well, we do sell. Nope, never do that on camera. I have a faulty one. So this one is we do sell these on our website. This is the standalone door, and it fits the 6x10 size. So you may consider purchasing it on our website, and we'll ship it to you. Okay. So let's see. So Barbara George says she started out doing the individual doors, but now you're planning on redoing them to do a wall hanging. Oh, well, I'm glad that you're finding this helpful. And some of you like my hair. Thanks so much. Me too. Super easy, super easy. Let's see. And Sharon, she's not going to put them together. She embroidered the month on them, so she knows what month it is. That does help, if that's important. You could also, with a permanent marker, mark on the back of those quilts, what month is which. So that would help. Okay, so let's see. So what is next on our agenda? Well, let's talk about the 3 changes you have to make during the embroidery process so that you don't turn it into a standalone door. So number 1, cut all the fabrics a 1/2-inch larger if they're going to extend beyond the outline of the design. So if you have, let's say, the ambulance in the May door, you're going to want to make that ambulance applique a little wider, so we really make sure we catch it in that seam. But if it's a door or a window applique, you don't need to make that larger. Just the skies, the ground, anything that's going to go outside those edges. Next up is, do not trim the batting after the batting tack down. Just start with a big piece and don't trim it away. Don't trim it away. And then thirdly is skip the last 2 colors, the hanging tab and the backing fabric. So, if you're like me, you might be happy about that because, I go through making these doors and so forth. And then then I'm at that last part and I'm like, oh, I have to make the hanging tabs. So it's kind of fun. If you're going to do a quilt, you don't have to make the hanging tabs. But so there are the 3 points to remember. So now let's head over to the tight cam so you can see how we do this. All righty. So you can see I just have this as a placeholder. Here's 3 of my doors. I'm cheating. They are really finished. They have the tabs and so forth. But I just thought I'd have a pretty thing to hold our place there. This is not a door, but I want to show you this is a 1-inch finished sashing. So that's wide, right? It's pretty wide, which looks great on these big fleur-de-lis medallions. The proportion, the scale, all of that really works together. But probably not on our doors. Here is also a 1-inch sashing. And I think if you're going to have block after block and then another row, it might be too much. You're probably better off just doing a 1-inch sashing. I mean, a 1/2-inch sashing, sorry. And it's easy to do, super easy to do. So let me show you our process. The first thing you'll do is you will cut your sashing 1 inch wide by the height of the block. And I always cut it extra long, just generous. I don't want to fuss with making sure it's absolutely the same dimension. I always cut it a little bit longer and then I don't have to worry about the piecing. So we're going to cut that 1 inch wide, which is twice the size of your finished sashing. So if you want a finished sashing, that's a 1/2 inch. You're going to cut a 1 inch. And that's because of seam allowance on the back side. So on the back, just so you can see, here my seam allowance meets in the middle. I have batting all in there. So I have the same amount of, texture and loft across the whole quilt as I do within the block. So that's the key to is in the trimming of the block. So let's go ahead and take a look. Here I have a June door. And I've already trimmed one side, but just so you can see, I place the quilter's 1/4 inch mark, that line, on the outside edge of my block. And I'm just going to place that, align it. I can see through that ruler and then securely hold it down, keep my hand out of harm's way and slice it away. And then repeat on the bottom. Oh yeah, but I was supposed to do something else first. So before you do all that slicing, it is best on the wrong side to trim your stabilizer before you trim the block. So you're just going to take your scissors, lift that stabilizer, and just hold those scissors against that seam, trim that away. Sometimes your scissor tip might get caught in the batting, but now I have a nice clean finish. If it's in there, it's okay. It's not that big of a deal, but some of your blocks may have a heavier cutaway, like this one has a heavier cutaway on it than the no-show mesh. So it's just a choice, and it just makes it easier in the piecing. So now, again, 1/4 inch, slice that away. Now my block is finished, and it's only a 1/2 inch larger than its dimension, 1/4 inch on each side. Then I'm going to take my sashing and place that right sides together. Now I'll give you a little tip. If you pin it from the wrong side of the block, and you just pin it or clip it, whatever you like to use, and many of you don't pin or clip, and I'll admit that I don't always pin or clip. I can eyeball this, especially with the use of a 1/4 inch foot. So as I sew, I'm going to make sure I sew right in that line. It will be my 1/4 inch mark, but then when I do that, the stitching will also not be visible on the right side of the block. And I'll show you what I mean. I think I have a bad example somewhere. Usually have plenty of bad examples. Like here we go, right here. I didn't nail that absolutely perfectly because I didn't sew from the wrong side. From the back of the quilt block, I sewed from the back of the sashing. So if I had paid more attention and if I had sewn with this side up under the needle, then I would know that I would catch that. So once I sew to one block, it's then time to press this open. And once that's pressed open, you take your next block. And well, I have to trim this one because this one's a 1/2 inch. So let's go ahead and trim that so you can see how we add it. We'll trim that away. And now when I add these right sides together, the key, what's really important is to make sure your block, the top of your block and the bottom of your blocks are aligned. And then just pin this to the sashing. But that's really key, that those two are aligned, the top and the bottom. And then when you after it's sewn and you press it, all your edges will be absolutely perfect, which is really key. You have to have that all matched up. Okay? So that's as easy as it is. And you will use the same sashing technique to make your rows of blocks, and then the very same sashing technique to connect each row to each other. Super fun. Really fast and easy. So let's see what kind of questions. The net uses wash away thread when sewing her cut lines. Well, that's good. You think more than me, definitely. But that's a really great idea. And Sandy says this would make a great table runner. 3 doors to cover the 4 seasons. Oh, yeah, that's very nice. Very nice. And Sharon, you're looking forward to seeing the quilts from some of these amazing women. I will look forward to that also, for sure. And will I have instructions available? No, you got it right here. So you can always watch the rebroadcast. It will be on our Facebook Live and YouTube Live channel. So you can always come back to this and review those steps. But it's really pretty sashing. So let's see. What with sashing would you recommend if you aren't sashing the blocks, only the rows? I would still use that. I want a 1/2 inch finish sashing, just because all of the details in each door are so small. You don't want the sashing to overpower anything. And then for the the borders, maybe 1.5 inches finished, maybe 1.5 inches finished. And Marianne, Dodie, you like the 4 doors by 3 for your wall hanging. And you can't wait to have all the doors done. Yeah, me too. I'm really looking forward to it. Still looking for ideas for 2021. So pipe in here. If you have anything that you've been wishing we will be doing in the next year, share your thoughts. And Kristen, the sashing is so easy. It really is. It's all about the cutting. And you have to remember, it's 2 times, you have to cut your fabric twice the finished size of the sashing. So like if you want a 1 inch finished sashing, you actually cut 2 inches, and vice versa. If you want a 1/2 inch finished sashing, you cut 1 inch. So it's fun, super easy. Okay, what are we on to next? I think it's time to talk about needles, because so many people, we have maybe one go-to size that we keep in our sewing room, and that's what we think is the right size, but not really. Oh, wait, before we get to needles, I promised somewhere that I would talk to you or show you one more idea about making a door into a whole house. So now this is all of a digital representation that I did in Perfect Embroidery Pro software. And so for those of you who have that software, you could do this very easily. For those of you who have other software, you probably could do it also. So let's take a look. This is the January door. And as you remember, it has that tree. It also has a brick layout, right? That's what the house is made out of. But you could make a whole house very easily. So what I've done here is I've made some plain blocks on the bottom, the right and the left of the January door. The big blue squares that you see are like holding spots for windows. And then the roof, well, you're going to be left on your own. I don't know if I'll actually get to do this, but we'll see. We'll see. Oh, wait, we didn't want to do that. Okay, so here's how we would do this. Let's take a look. The first thing you would do is grab in the software, in this embroidery design, just the tree and the little snow that's in the door, in that January door. So copy and paste it and mirror image the tree, and then put it together. And then save that as a whole, save that as a whole design, and just kind of set it aside. Now you want to make the bricks for the other portions of the house. So select the outline of the whole house, the 6x10 outline, and or maybe, I guess, just the outline of the bricks itself, the house. And copy and paste that outline. And now go back to the original door and select only the bricks. And you'll see in the properties box that this complex fill is really an advanced stippling. So that's a feature, it's a choice in the fill type, and the pattern is stipple rectangle, and the size of the pattern is 20. So all of that information is right in your embroidery design already for you. So if you're trying to learn to digitize, to do kind of your own thing, all of these details are already in every embroidery design that you get from Dime. If you have our software and you open up the C2S file, all of that information is there. Okay, so now that we know that, we're going to select that outline and copy and paste it, and then convert it to complex fill. Just right click, convert to complex fill. And then go back to that properties box and change it to advanced stippling and the rectangle stipple. And this is how it will come out. This is the default angle. So it's kind of at a 45-degree angle. Attractive, but not what we're trying to go for. So with the select tool, which is the little arrow and the string of thread, right? You select that tool, and then you get some more editing features will appear on the screen. So you can see here that I have just changed the angle of the complex fill. Instead of going 45 degrees across the block, it is now going 180 directly across. And then when I release my cursor, it's perfectly aligned with the January door. So then I can just copy and paste that and build from there. Now you already have windows. You were given a window on the August door at the lake house, and you have a attractive door with a valance on the March door. So you can just go back into those files, copy and paste, and load them into this door. So kind of fun, wouldn't you agree? So let's see what kind of questions. Someone wanted to know, if you use a wider sashing, do you cut your block larger? Well, that's a really brilliant question, because I'm going to go grab that fleur-de-lis block so you can see. Not only do you change the size that you cut, but you change your seam allowance. So for a 1-inch finished width, you're going to cut your sashing 2 inches, but you're going to use a 1/2-inch seam allowance, not a 1/4 inch. And that will fill that 1-inch sashing with batting. Here, I'll kind of fold it over so you can see. It completely fills that 1-inch sashing with batting. And, that's the key. That's what you have to remember. All right. Easy. But, that's in every stipple collection that we've ever published. We call that our reversible piecing technique. And it's also in my Quilt with an Embroidery Machine in 8 Easy Lessons. I've taught this on YouTube. I've taught it on Sewing with Nancy. So, if you really need those explanations, maybe go to one of those resources to find out. Let's see. Let's see what people are saying. You love the house idea, Misha. It's a shame you can't make a house and then just switch out the doors. Well, well, there's an idea. I mean, you could, right? But if you remember, some of our doors have wood slats going horizontal. I think February has a cabin that they're going vertical. So, you know, there'd be all different ways to do that. But I think maybe you just decide on one, or, you know, you do several. I mean, you don't have to just keep it down for that. Let's see. And Cindy, you missed the beginning. You can't wait to watch the replay. And so excited to make your doors into a quilt. I know it'll be fun, right? And I think of all the fun stuff. Julie, you want to know, is the info in the instructions? Not in the, you know, these are the projects that you download every week, every month. Just give you instructions to do this door with the finished back. It does not include the instructions to make the whole quilt. That's kind of a new idea that actually some of you have shared. You've said, you know, I want to make it into a quilt. So I thought this would be how I approach it. I'm sure there's other ways to do it, for sure. But, you know, that's an easy way to do it. Definitely. Let's see. The best way, I think it's a really easy way to put it together as you go. It just, you know, the work is almost done. And by the time you get to the end of the year, right, first week of January, first week of December, you'll have all 12 blocks. Do we have YouTube videos for learning to use PEP? Yes, we have over 75 YouTube videos for our embroidery software. So if you just go to YouTube and search Inspired by Dime, that is all of our software lessons. We also have a Facebook group called Inspiration Software, and you can get help there, and links to other videos. All the videos are there too. So let's see. Yeah, so there's, why do you cut your block? Yeah, I think we've answered a lot. How do you add the tabs or a tunnel to hang it? Oh, well, Isabel, the tabs, the instructions for the tabs are in every door of the month. You know, you cut a 3.5-inch square, you turn in the raw edges, you fold it over, and then you add that as the second to last color of every door. Because after you add that, it stitches it at the top, and then you add your backing fabric, and that completes the door. So that's always there. Okay, let's see. So we do, I wanted to talk about, and Sue Brown, she also does a weekly class on PEP. There is lots of info on PEP, definitely. And Vonnie says the videos for PEP are fantastic. Oh, I'm glad you're enjoying them, Vonnie. I know there's, you know, people can think that learning software is challenging, but I can tell you the number one way to learn software is to use it. Use it every day. Force yourself to use it every day. Get away from the idea of sending an embroidery design right to your machine. Every embroidery design I purchase, I open in my software. And just that simple act makes me more familiar with my software. I look at every design by color. I do the redraw. I want to see, you know, what the digitizer, how she laid it out, or he. I want to know, you know, what's coming when. I don't always depend on my machine. Yeah, I know I can do that. But you know what? Frankly, the machines have so many bells and dings and, you know, I just want to see it. I just want to see what I'm up against before I stitch it. So that's a really great way to just force yourself to use software. And then once you do, I'll tell you, when you start opening your designs, you are going to want to change the color sequence. You're going to want to pull out an element. You're going to want to enlarge an element. You know, there are so many different things that you can do with your software. I've had a blast with Perfect Embroidery Pro. It gives me all the freedom I ever dreamed of. So anyway, let's see. Okay, it would be interesting to use the same. Oh, Susan has a really good idea. It would be interesting to use the same sky fabric for all the blocks so that when they come out together, the sky fabric would bring them all together. Yeah, I think that is a very good idea. Of course, it is August, and many people have already done them, but yeah, great thought, but if you are going to redo your blocks to make it into a quilt, then keep that in mind. That's a really great idea. And let's see, can we get a different design for the May door? Oh, Evelyn, you can turn any of those doors into your own thing. Boy, in May, I know that some people, were maybe surprised at the hospital that I did, but, my goodness, it was right at the beginning of this pandemic. And I just felt that we really needed to give a shout out to all those essential workers. But, I have seen people who did schools, quilt shops, market, the grocery store. They've changed it into all kinds of things. So there's lots of different options that you can go and change. Yeah, let's see. So Linda, you say every time you open your software, there's always an aha moment about something. I agree. I'm always learning about it. And it gets more fun every time I use it. So I talked about, sometimes we run into puckers and it's really not about the digitizing. It can truly be about needles. So let's talk about using the right needle for the job. And of course, this is going to lead up to our special today that, I know many of you like to take advantage of. So are you using the right needle? Do you know how many different sizes and blade types there are? Let's take a look. So when you purchase an embroidery needle, it's what they call a light ballpoint. So take that image there. You can see the ballpoint has a rounded tip, as where the sharp point is razor sharp, right? So as you take a look at the ballpoint, know that a ballpoint doesn't damage knits. Ballpoint needles were developed for knit fabric, not wovens. And but when we do a lot of cotton fabrics, woven fabrics, like all of our doors are definitely made out of cotton fabric and woven fabric. So let's see. The next point I wanted to share with you is that you can visually see here how the ballpoint is spreading the yarns apart. It's not piercing through them. It slips right between those yarns, and that really helps eliminate puckers. As where a sharp point will literally cut the yarn. And this can definitely cause some unraveling, that's an ugly thing to experience after you've embroidered, right? Or even during the embroidery process. So let's see. They can, the sharp needles cleanly penetrate the fabric. Look at the difference in this walleye warrior embroidery design. The top image shows a look closely around the fish. You can see how it's puckered there as compared to the bottom image where when it was stitched with a ballpoint really made a big difference in the stitch out of that design. So there are also different blade sizes, like a very small 65 by 9. It's great for lightweight fabrics. Also fine thread. If you're doing lettering, like microtext lettering, it's best to use a very tiny needle like that, 65-9. 75-11 is probably the most commonly used blade size. And then we move up in size as our fabrics get a little heavier, 1385 or 90 by 14 for the heaviest one. So choosing the right blade side really protects your bobbin case and your hook, because when you don't have the right blade size, when the needle is not strong enough to penetrate all the way through that fabric in the timing of the stitch, then it can cause thread breaks, or even worse, it can cause a burr on your bobbin case. And I know, boy, I most certainly have had that happen to me. So here you can see on when a blade is too narrow, too lightweight, it can deflect onto that that bobbin case and leave a burr. But when it's the correct size, it goes down in the timing that it's supposed to without any contact. So our special, we have some very great prices on needles. We offer all these different sizes, and in both a light ballpoint and a sharp, and they're only $8 for 20 needles. Can you believe that? So I like to get all the sizes, and I just keep them in a kind of a tackle box, you know, a plastic tackle box. Those little pockets, I can show you those. I have one right here. Those little pink cases all fit right in here so easily, and that's where I keep all of my needles. And let's see, but you know, talking about smoking deals, we do have some really great deals on our thread quartets. Now here we've grouped some threads together that are just 4 different colors that really work well. Like if you're doing watery projects, something with, you know, the lake or what have you, you would have several choices for that. Greens, you can never have enough greens in embroidery for sure. I find I'm always short on greens, and you need a large selection. And of course, the great grays, you know, a lot of this architectural embroidery that we're doing, stone, walkways, kind of you know, buildings and so forth. I definitely needed a lot of different grays and majestic sunsets. It reminds me of Susan Akari's her sunset fabric that she chose for her lake house, one of the first images that we showed today. And so they're beautiful. Look at those 4. They just scream summer or maybe even fall, right? Coming up. And then pleasing pastels. You know, sometimes we all tend to purchase medium value fabric and thread more than the darks and the lights. And in order to get the proper shading and highlighting, you really need a wide selection. So I imagine if you kind of, you know, analyze your thread wall, you may realize that you're light on some of the, you know, no pun intended, but that you are short on some of these lighter value threads. So it's never a bad idea to have those in store. And then pretty in pink, you can never have enough pinks, right? Let's see. So we see some fun comments coming in about what they would like to see. She'd like to see cute campers, cute camper of the month. Yeah, that might be kind of an interesting thought. And then Kathy Winks says, does the blade refer to the size of the shaft? Well, yes, it does. That's exactly what it refers to. And let's see. Yeah, Deborah Jones, she answered you, Kathy Winks, which is very helpful. You know, Deborah Jones is our absolute embroidery expert on staff here at Dime. And truth be told, she shared a lot of that needle information with me this morning so that I would know what I was talking about, because she's the one that has all that wisdom. Sharon Crean, so for cotton fabrics, you would use the ballpoint. No, for cotton fabrics, a woven cotton quilting fabric, you would use a sharp needle, because you want to, you know, penetrate right through it. A round ballpoint needle on the cotton fabrics is too dull, you know, and that can cause puckering. So that's why you want to do that. Yep. Oh, you asked 2-part question. Okay. Let's see. The only way to learn software is to know what each tool does. Just learn and play. Play and learn. Well, another thing that I will tell you is in Perfect Embroidery Pro and all of our Dime software, when you hover the mouse over a tool, a text window appears and tells you the name of the tool. So that is very helpful. And the cursor itself will change. Like, for instance, if you select the T for text, the cursor, instead of being an arrow, it becomes a small t. So or an A, I think it becomes an A. So you know that that's the tool that you have engaged. If you're wondering how to change settings in any embroidery software, you know, you have the ability to change with satin width and length and density and so forth. So when you're playing, exaggerate those changes. Like if you're going to change your density, like really blow it up to like 20.0 and look on the screen. And now you have a great visual representation of the change that would occur with minute changes, right? Like if you only changed it from a 0.6 to a 0.7, or you know, the reverse way. So that is a great way to learn the settings in your software of what they do and how it will change the embroidery. And then, you know, stitch stuff out, you know, do it on felt, you know, just, you know, be used for giving materials that you don't have an investment in either, you know, a lot of time or a lot of money on the material itself. As you get to learn your embroidery software, you'll be so glad you did. And, you know, use a permanent marker, write on the embroidery design in the, you know, on the fabric, so that you have a reference for later on. What good is a universal needle? Not much, Anne, really. I mean, I think as your embroidery skills elevate, so should your tools. And you really do need a large selection of needles to use for the right fabric. So universal was developed to just kind of be a catch-all for, you know, everything, and really not so great. So let's see. Do we have Serger Ovation needles for knits? No, Chris, we do not. Okay. And then Chris Yost, she kind of likes a window of the month, looking in or out. And that is a good idea. That was a suggestion that we heard earlier. So let's see. Deidre, you got confused thinking ballpoint for embroidery on cotton. That's okay. You know, think about the fabric first. So a sharp needle is appropriate for the fabric, even though we are doing embroidery, right? You know, when you purchase a pack of embroidery needles by another brand, it will be a light ballpoint. That's just the industry standard. So know that you don't have to use that. If you're doing, you know, these doors, like all these tiny little details, the lettering and so forth, like look at that Surf Shack, right? That's really tiny lettering. So it's best, you know, to use a sharp microtext, not microtext, but a sharp needle, a 65-9 for just that lettering. And that comes out beautifully. Okay, so next week we're going to be back here again, and then we have some guests coming towards the end of the month, and I'm really excited to have here, but I can't tell you who they are yet. Sorry, but you know, stay on our social media, keep in touch with us. You know, if you like our page, you'll be notified when we're going live. You'll also be notified when a guest is coming and so forth. So let's see. A pet of the month, Deidre, that's a cute idea. That's a cute idea. Yeah, well, we do have some pretty cool new pet software out, but that's a secret. We can't talk about that yet. You appreciate you explaining the difference. Yeah, you know, Judy, aloha. I hope everything is doing fine in Hawaii with you. And, you know, there's so many different ways to approach every embroidery project. So if you control the variables that you can control, like your fabric, your stabilizer and your needles, you know, then you'll learn as time goes on that it could be the embroidery design that has an issue or that needs some adjustment. So anyway. All right, I think that's it. We'll wrap it up for that. And we look forward to seeing you here next week. Thanks for joining me today.